Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com, a full service CX and UX agency, and welcome to Tuesday Office Hours Ask Me Anything, which I do every Tuesday at this time. Today is February 16, 2021, or so they say, and I will be taking your questions live in the chat rooms wherever you are, so won't you please join, preferably on Twitch. I'm still trying to get more followers on Twitch, and I feel like I'm starting to like it more than YouTube. There's some really interesting things I can do on Twitch that I can't do on YouTube. So join on Twitch, deltacx.com. Follow there, please. And also live on YouTube, of course, and on LinkedIn as well. If you have a question that you would like to ask anonymously, especially if it's about some troubles at your current job or anything else, you can use this link here, deltacx.link/ask. And that link is good all week long. And if I get questions after this stream is over, I will just keep those questions ready for the next time. And you'll be among the first people to get your answer, which means I have one question that is waiting from previously. And I will start with that. But again, I'm here for you, so please ask any questions that you have. They are all welcome. Questions that disagree, questions I don't normally get. Again, this is Ask Me Anything, and I don't think I've refused to answer anything yet, despite some strange questions. How's everybody doing? All right, so the question that I got earlier was, "Hi, Debbie. I try to connect the project goals with the company's goals, but I don't often know the company's specific goal and strategy, rather than earning more money. Whom normally could we reach and ask for this info in the company?" This is a very good question, and it really points at some problems with process, which means, anonymous asker, feel free to show this one to your manager, because there needs to be some changes in process here. Pretty much most project management and team suggestions, and even some management styles and Lean Six Sigma and all kinds of things, say you should have team and project charters. They're like better than plans. And so the idea is that when a project begins or a team is brought together, we understand who is on this team. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What are the business goals, or what are the desired outcomes for this particular project? How are we going to measure that? Who's on the team? Who's responsible for what? Also helps us set some boundaries so that everybody isn't trying to do UX work. So in a dreamy dream world, if someone were doing these project and team charters, you would not only have the answer to this, but you would know who else to go to if you weren't too sure about some of the details. Since you don't have that, and many companies aren't doing those, which is a shame because it's everything I read highly recommends them, and yet it's not being done, I would probably start with a project manager, because even if the project manager doesn't have those answers, and they would know who to point to. And so you are trying to figure out, for this particular project, what are the company's goals or initiatives that this matches. Why are we doing this from the business perspective? Hopefully you know why from the customer value perspective. So this would mean that you will also want to find out, what are the success criteria? How can we tell if this project later was a success or not? And what are the metrics around this project? What are the things we're going to measure? How do we know we have success? What are we measuring? What's our before numbers? What will we look for in our after numbers? How will we collect that feedback? How will we know? Can we collect some feedback qualitatively with your CX or UX researchers? Or is somebody going to just try to run a survey or check app ratings or something like that? So remember that I believe there's a lot more that we should know other than, what are the goals here? That is a good question, and it's an absolute shame that you don't know it, though it's not your fault. Whoever's putting together the project should be clearly communicating that to you, and I'm so sorry that they haven't. By the way, did everyone get a notification that we're live? Yes, I see it now. And hopefully LinkedIn got a notification as well. Welcome everybody as you are filing in. Yes, LinkedIn got the notification as well. So I hope that helps. And you're right, somebody should know this, and I don't know why you don't know this, but hopefully that will help. I'm not seeing any comments at all. Are there comments out there and I'm not seeing them? Is my comment system broken? Let's check. Anyway, while I am checking my comment system, won't you please send your questions in, which of course you can do via the anonymous link, deltacx.link/ask, or in the chat room for wherever you are located. I'm going to check now what's cooking in Twitch to make sure that the comments are alive and I haven't missed any. No, it says welcome to the chat room. So I will send a test comment. Testing, testing. Hello, Twitch viewers. Let's see. That should have come through. Yes, Cassie's here. Hey, Cassie, good to see you. Oh, Shannon and my boyfriend and Emmy. Hey, everybody. Okay, thank you. I'm alive. I'm streaming. It was a little lonely there for a moment, but I was quickly saved by all of you. So thank you for that. So that was actually the only question I got ahead of time today, which means that if you have any questions, yours is next. No waiting. You will be served immediately. Let's see. What else am I looking at? How's everybody doing? Oh, Shannon says I'm typing one now. Okay, then you are next. It's always good to hear. And again, all questions are welcome. I am going to monitor the anonymous one. And again, you can send that during the week as well. All questions are welcome. Newbie questions, current job questions. And I just saw someone on LinkedIn complaining that, where's all the advice for UX managers out there? And I say, hey, UX managers, come ask me a question. I don't know what advice to give you until I hear what your issues are. I can't just say all UX managers should do X. That doesn't seem very customer focused. So I would love to get more questions from UX veterans, managers, and leaders. And once in a while, I do get them. But of course, if you're not asking, I don't know how to help you. So please come ask your questions and I'm happy to help. Oh, how's everybody doing? Who's locked down? No one will be admitted to the slurping scene. Let's see. Oh, my boyfriend has such a cute picture. Let's put him on the screen. You're the picture you put on your Twitch account. Look at you. It's him. He's got moderator powers. If you show up on Twitch and you're a jerk, he will throw you out. Kayleen says, my apartment's fire alarms are going off for the 11th time this year. That means my question is, what floor do you live on? Because I have a traumatic story about that. All right, let's take a look at what Shannon is asking. And of course, I'm going to copy and paste this into the description that I paste later into YouTube. Let's see what Shannon says and put it on the screen. Shannon says, I do a lot of strategy. I don't facilitate a lot of usability testing and qualitative research, but I use the results in my job from our UX analyst. My passion lies in strategy. Do you think I should learn more of the research facilitation or focus on my strengths and passion? Good question, and I'm glad you're on Twitch because I'm going to have some follow-up questions, and Twitch is only delayed by about 6 or 7 seconds, so you're going to hear them fast and respond fast, and this is going to be almost a conversation. Warm up the fingers. Okay, so I guess my first question would be, is there something about planning or doing qualitative research that you don't like or you're trying to avoid? That would be my first question. Another question would be, let's see, should I learn more of research or focus on my strengths and passion? I guess another question would be, when you are working on strategy, are there other places where you get the information from that help you put together an overarching strategy? Okay, I see a question coming in from Amreen, so I'll look at that in a moment. You say lack of experience and know-how. Okay, so it's not that you hate UX research or you don't want to do it. It's that you just haven't done much or any of it yet, and so it would be a totally new skill for you to learn. M324 in YouTube, I see you, and I'm going to add you to our questions. We've got a couple before you now that they're coming in, but I promise I will get to you. Shannon, my short answer, let's see, I gather a lot of quantitative and heat maps. Okay, I figured with CRO you probably work a lot in quant, and maybe secondary research in times. It's great to combine that with qualitative, and especially if you listen to me or Larry Marine enough, we would probably be telling you that getting more into qualitative research, whether you're doing it or you're working more in the analysis and synthesis of somebody else's research, which means being a much closer partner with them, would be really important, because very often it is the research, and especially the observational research, like if you saw the task analysis video, this is where very often the opportunities come to light and the strategies almost start to reveal themselves. And if you are getting that second hand from somebody else, or you're waiting for their research or something like that, there can be a little disconnection. Shannon says, I'm extroverted, but I don't really want to interview. I know, but you also didn't want to be on my show, and that went really well. So I would say, why don't you want to interview? Because I have found interviewing to generally be quite fun. And I'm technically introverted, believe it or not. So I would say, are you sure you don't want to do this? Because maybe you're just afraid of it, or you don't really know what goes into it, and it might be something worth trying. So I also think, if you heard Sean yesterday talking about some of the things that he feels about UX, and it's his opinion, but he was saying he thinks that people need to be more end-to-end from the perspective of UX research and information architecture and design, because why are different people doing this and having to communicate it to each other? I see the pros and cons of both, but I think when you're trying to be a strategist, it's really important to be a much closer part of that research, to at least be watching the observational research and trying to work on the interpretation of it, even if you didn't do it yourself. But I would say consider doing it yourself, unless you find you're really terrible at it, which is always possible, because then I think you can be a little bit more of that one-stop strategy shop. Otherwise, if you wanted to try to promote yourself as a strategist, you would have to say, I'm going to find awesome strategies, but I need your UX researchers to go and do this, this, and this so that I can find the strategy. Well, hold on. Some great researchers might be able to do that too. So then what do you offer? Because I do research and then I find some good strategy ideas from it. No offense, but I kind of don't need you. So I think that where you can partner with people, that's nice, but where you want to start to present yourself as more of a one-stop shop for strategy, I would probably say getting into the qualitative research would be good. Let's see. Shannon says, I'm afraid of asking leading questions. And you should be. It's easy to ask leading questions, and you probably will, and it'll take time to get into better habits. But don't be afraid of doing something just because you don't have every best practice tucked under your hat right away. You'll get there. Kayleen says, I'm worried about saying the right thing or the wrong thing when interviewing someone. So yes. And Amreen, you also asked a question in LinkedIn. I don't know if that's going to be the same question you asked, but your question is next. Okay, you asked it in both places. So your question is next. Shannon, I hope that helps. We can always talk more about it privately through the Slack channel, but I would say don't be afraid to get more into research, and I'll help where I can. And, if you have some budget to put toward this, I would say take a look at some of Michelle Ronson's classes on curiositytank.com. Not sponsored. She doesn't totally go into observational research. I think she focuses more on interviews. Larry and I would say observational research is the number one thing to get into, but even if you can improve your interview skills, it will probably help your interview skills and your confidence around your interview skills. No problem, Amreen. I promise I'm paying attention to all this stuff. And so, Shannon, maybe that's just the gateway drug. For now, sit in on some of the interviews and kind of watch them happen, or observe in what other ways, or watch the videos. But I would probably say eventually, if you want to really be that strategist, you might need to do some of that research yourself. Otherwise, You're like, hi, I'll collect everybody else's work and tell you what I think. And it's like, not sure that's a strong sell. If you can sell that, great. I'm not sure. So one woman's opinion. I hope that helps, but keep me posted. Next, let's get Amreen's question. I'm new to the UI UX designer field. Clearly, because we don't say UI UX here. And trouble writing the insight. So many articles available online, but they all seem confusing. Thanks in advance. Okay, so I think that this question, first of all, when it comes to online articles, remember that there are no standards for how these get published. So it's always good when you see an article, if you're like, is this going to help me or not? You can always look that person up on LinkedIn and see, wow, okay, so this person is writing about research insights. Let's see what their research background is. And if you're not impressed by it, if they're just out of school, if they're not in their first UX job or they're just in their first UX job, this may or may not be someone that you want to try to learn research insights from. If you are talking about trouble with insight, and again, when you say insight, do you mean finding the insights from a UX research adventure? This is where I wish everybody were in Twitch, because you'd answer me in 7 seconds. LinkedIn is sometimes minutes behind. So please, 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 everybody join Twitch and follow me there. deltacx.com, all written out. I'd love to see everybody there. And of course, put !giveaway over at Twitch, and you can enter for our February giveaway, which is a personally signed book from me. I will draw a winner at the end of this month, and I believe we have 7 people entered so far, so your chances are good. So Amreen, if you can tell me a little bit more about what you mean by writing the insight, and that way I can give you a little bit of a more focused answer. M324, I see your second question as well. Let me get that on the list. And Destiny, I see your question too. So let me get everybody on the list. And what we'll do is we'll come back to Amreen when we can get a little bit more detail about this question. And let's just check that I'm not missing anything from the email. Nope, I got the email. So caught up so far. Not caught up. Yes, caught up. Okay, good. All right, let's ask a couple of, let's see what's coming in. Amreen says research insights. Okay, so let's answer that question. I would also take a look at curiositytank.com. This is Michelle Ronson. She's been on the show a number of times. Not sponsored. I don't get paid to recommend her. And she actually has a specific course on this. She has a number of courses related to doing research, planning research, doing interviews, working on your insights and things like that. So I would say look into her courses. They're not the cheapest courses out there, but they are quite good. My boyfriend took them, so I heard that they are good, and I heard that they're good from other people too. Other than that, it's very hard for me to say, hey, here's how you find insights. Ultimately, the way you find insights is by having good critical thinking and being an excellent detective and finding the what's the word I'm looking for, everybody? Finding the patterns and the themes. So sometimes I'll just start putting things people said up on a mural board, or you can use real sticky notes on a wall, and start moving them around and bringing them together. And eventually I'll be like, oh, that is what's going on. So it's a little harder for me to try to explain this, because I find that when I organize my information, I sometimes feel like these insights jump out at me, but I don't totally know. So I hope that gives you some things to look at and think about. I'm not totally sure how to say how to find insights. Ultimately, if you've asked great questions of the right people and really listened and been able to observe people where possible, I just sometimes find that the insights naturally pop, because when you can really be familiar with what people are doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, what's going wrong. As soon as you see what's going wrong, I feel like a lot of the insights and opportunities just jump up and punch me in the face. But I recognize that is not actionable information that you can go try and use. But I would say maybe if you tell me what you're doing now after you have done qualitative research like observations or interviews, I can see if there's something I would possibly change about your process. All right, so let's grab a couple. Oh, what is the course I mentioned? CuriosityTank.com is Michelle Ronson's courses. Again, not sponsored. Check those out. She has a whole pile of courses that go together. I think you can try to take them individually if you want to, but in reality, they all go together. Scrolling back, I'm looking for the question about the agency. Where is this agency question? Agency. Here it is, M324. I found you. All right, M324 over on YouTube asks, hi, I currently work at an agency doing lots of different things from research to building on webflow. I'm hoping to land a UX role. Should I remove anything unrelated to UX on my portfolio? Really neat question. Thanks for that. Sort of. Obviously, whatever you've been doing in website design is going to have some relevance. And so I would say don't hide your history. It is relevant. However, if I am looking at your portfolio and I'm looking for UX work, then it's technically some of the webflow stuff might not be that. And it sounds like you know that. So what I might do is maybe I would split my portfolio into UX projects and be very clear about what you did that was true UX, and then maybe have like website projects or something and showcase those, just because you're also trying to show that you've been around for a while. You didn't learn this last week. You have some personal maturity or career maturity, and you'll be able to hopefully translate some of this stuff. Now, in the UX case studies, I'm going to expect to see, and you can always watch episode 56 from the playlist on YouTube in the Delta CX channel on portfolio do's and don'ts. I'm going to expect to see great UX process and really good storytelling. I'm looking for both. If you are telling me stories of, yeah, the client really wanted this, and so I put it in Webflow, I'm going to go, where's the UX? I don't see it. This doesn't sound very UXy. This sounds like order taking website building. So make sure that what you have that you think is UX is UX. You can always work with a UX mentor or coach, get a little bit of help there, some other opinions. But I think one mistake that I see sometimes from people who are trying to transition from more traditional web design or website work or web agency work is that some of the things they thought were UX kind of aren't. So remember, it's not UX without users. It's not CX without customers or users. And so make sure that you have case studies or portfolio stories that show how you did research with real humans, preferably users or customers, preferably qualitative and not just a survey. Make sure you are showing that you then tested things with them. So we really want to see that arc of true UX work. So M, I hope that helps you. And I know you've got a second question here. And actually, you are the next question too, but I sometimes miss my email. Let's check. Thank you, Deadman Shoe, for following on Twitch. I need everybody I can get. My goal is 50 followers this month. So please follow me on Twitch. I'm at 40, so I need you. Okay, next question is also from new friend M324, and I would call you by your real name, but I don't know it, and you don't have to tell me. M324 says, what is the sweet spot when it comes to lengths of case studies? I tend to write up everything. Would that make me come across as a novice? It really depends. I think that there is definitely a lot of confusion out there between how much do I put in a case study? Should I really just put the minimum stuff with some pretty pictures because some recruiters want to see the least possible because they don't totally get CX and UX? But what I tell people is I do like to see more information because remember, I'm not just looking at your storytelling. I'm not just looking for a couple of bullet points and pretty pictures. I am looking at, can M324 do this work? Do I want to meet this person? Do I want to interview this person? Does it look like they know what they're doing? Or am I setting off red flags because this person kind of doesn't know what they're doing? So you have to be able to convince We have to get past the first line, the HR, the recruiter, the sourcer, but eventually that hiring manager is going to see it. And if you have a hiring manager who is a CX or UX veteran, they're going to expect to see quality work. Y'all know from episode 56, my phases of proficiency. They don't want to just see building blocks. They don't want to see, I talked to users, I learned things. They want to see the science and technique of what you're doing. And of course, if you have even more experience, the strategy, but definitely the science and technique. Now, if you go back in time to the live stream podcasts playlists, go back in time to, I think, episode 18. I found a portfolio I really liked and I profiled it and I showed it. And unfortunately, the guy has since taken it down and changed it. It was better before. I thought this person did a really great job with their portfolio because they did some really thorough storytelling, but where they had some extra stuff that I might want to see that the recruiter might not because they can't make sense of some of the details, he had like either an accordion where it was like, click to see more about this, or he had like a light box where it's like, click to see more about this, and it was like a light box that came up that then you could X out. So remember, there's always ways to tell a longer story, but use clever user experience, interaction design concepts to make some things show and hide so that the person who doesn't want to see it can keep going. And the person who wants to see it goes, yeah, that's what I want to see. But I do warn people against too many offsite links. Like, don't say, oh, you want to know more about my research? Go click here for a PDF on my research. No. Don't give me an errand. Make this easy for me. Especially since most hiring managers, from what I hear, are spending 90 seconds in a portfolio before deciding if they want to meet you or not. So don't send me to other files and videos and all that. Tell me the story here. Make it easy for me. Kayleen says, I've watched that episode at least twice, especially since that portfolio is not live anymore. I know he took it down. I was like, what are you doing? I loved that. It made me want to work with you. And that's rare. Thanks, M324. I hope that helps. This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. We are already about halfway done. So again, as always, please remember, if you're on YouTube, press like. Really helps me in the algorithm. Please follow over on Twitch. The delay is 7 seconds. We are going to have way more of a conversation and a human interaction over there, even though I'm talking and you're typing. You can also join our Slack workspace, which is totally free, deltacx.link, which is my URL shortener, /join Slack. And of course, now I've got the tip jar, which is for the new supercomputer fund. I got an email this morning that the supercomputer is now being built. So hopefully I'll see it in a few weeks. That way my stream won't crash. I won't keep getting these memory error messages I see, and so on. So thanks to everybody donating to the supercomputer fund. Okay, so let's see. The next question was Destiny. Let's scroll over to that and put up Destiny, who is a powerhouse, may I say. Always impressed. So Destiny says, looking at the UX field, I get the impression that employers expect you to be good at everything. Research, visual design, prototyping. How can you navigate this? Super question. So one piece of advice that I give is, first of all, try to get good at things one at a time. If you try to get good at visual design, research, prototyping, task analysis, personas, testing, whatever, it's going to be too hard. It's just going to be too hard. You have to learn one thing at a time, make sure you understand it and it's internal and you're using it and you're starting to get more fluid with it, and then you can try to learn another thing. I think that people who try to learn a lot of things at the same time end up quite surface with those things and end up in building blocks land, as you've heard me say many times. So remember, we want to make sure we're learning things with science and technique and not just, okay, I spent an hour in Figma, now I think I know Figma. And okay, I spent an hour reading a couple of articles about interviews, now I know interviews. Well, you probably don't. So I think that while it's true that jobs increasingly do expect multiple skills and talents, and even I do expect some combination, even though I'm lower than the average person in how much I expect people to be hybrids and jacks of all unicorns. But I do think it's important to know multiple things. But again, I know you're in your kind of first UX job. I don't expect you to know everything, and I expect you to know everything at the level of where you are. That's reasonable expectations for you as a worker. I also tell people, don't feel pressured to learn or do anything you hate or are bad at, where you feel like you just can't get better. If you hate doing something, why would you want to go into the job that expects you to do that? That skill might end up being a big part of that job, and now you're spending a lot of time doing something you don't like or actively hate. So, for example, I don't enjoy front-end development, so I stopped doing it. I won't take a job that requires it. That's my choice. I am a deeply mediocre, if not bad, artist. I don't think I can be a better artist. I am just deeply mediocre on a good day. I have not tried to get better at visual design. I recognize that that keeps me out of a lot of jobs, but I also know I don't enjoy doing art. So I haven't tried to get better at that. But over the years, I've tried to push myself more with research. I started out more as an information architect, interaction designer, and prototyper, and I wasn't that much of a researcher. I got research once in a while, and I didn't get it as much as I liked. So I hadn't really strengthened myself there, but I could do it. And now I'm doing it a lot more. And in fact, now I'm doing more research than information architecture, interaction design, and prototyping. But again, this is a story over the course of years. These aren't things I spent months on. These are things I've spent years on. So I would say, yes, ultimately, it's great to have more skills and to be able to say to somebody, like when I apply for jobs, I say, hey, look, I can do all of user-centered design except art. Please don't give me art. I can art direct, I can check for accessibility, but holy cats, don't give me the art. So I would say, take your time. I happen to know you because you're part of our Slack channel, so I know that you are still relatively new to UX in your first year or so working in it. Don't feel pressure to become amazing at everything. It's going to take time, and keep learning. I think you're doing a great job from how it sounds and things you've posted to the channel, and don't push yourself. You know, keep learning, but don't feel like you have to be amazing at everything next week. You know, slow down. That's my best advice. Take your time. Hope that helps, and feel free to ask a follow-up question. I'm always happy to get follow-up questions from the original person who asked or from anybody else. You are welcome to ask a follow-up question to someone else's question. So, because we're all buddies here. Let's see where I am. I think I'm up to Ekening because I am pretty much caught up. Destiny, let me know what you think of that, and if you have a follow-up. YouTube is about 30 seconds delayed, so I promise I will hear you when you see you when you post it. Ekening, friend of the show, says, hey Debs, I find myself wanting to craft solutions at a higher scale beyond screens. How do I move more into CX? Okay, so I guess a question would be, first of all, you're probably already in CX because I think of CX and UX in some ways as being interchangeable. If you are looking to go beyond the digital product, the smartphone, the website, and all of that, then you are probably looking at starting to study and learn service design. Service design is the non-digital cousin of UX and CX. It's, part of that whole umbrella universe. And so you would be looking at service design and some of the processes and deliverables and tasks that are part of service design. If your next question is, what the heck is service design and where do I start? We had a podcast on that with Elisa Delgado. So again, you can always search stuff on YouTube. Everything's archived there. Just go to YouTube and type Delta CX service design. It'll probably pop right up. I don't remember what number it was. I want to guess like 67, but I don't know. We're about to do episode 100 and I clearly don't have them all memorized. But I would say check that out. Service design is great to know because it's kind of that other side of the human interaction with services and experiences. What I like to say to people, for those of you watching who aren't sure what I'm talking about, that many people think UX is just the problem finding and problem solving around screens. Smartphones, watches, computers, kiosks, thermostats, and they think that some other department handles in-person experiences. So imagine checking into a hotel. That's an in-person experience, but someone designed that. Someone decided what kind of people work here. What do they say when you walk in? What does the lobby smell like? What are we doing? How do we connect with you? Some people think, well, that must be marketing. And it's like, well, marketing is a partner there, but service design is all about how do we connect with humans. I had a potential client last year who ghosted me, unfortunately. I'd love to hear from him. But he had a project that had to do with some sort of digital way for certain types of patients to keep track of their medications. But then once in a while, caseworkers would meet with them, and he wanted, all of this designed. So he needed the digital side, and he needed the service design of how will caseworkers interface with people, how can they get the information they know, and then the digital side of how will they keep these notes. So if that's what you're talking about, Ekening, then check that out. Thank you for asking. Oh, Steve is here. Steve, good to hear from you. It's like twice in one day. Let's take Steve's question. Steve says, hi, Debbie. Thanks again for taking the time to answer my private message. No problem. My question is, have you ever asked your company to initiate an exit strategy? How does that compare versus just discreetly looking for a job? Oh, you mean your own exit? Sounds like you mean your own exit. Like, hi, I want to quit. Help me get out of here? Is that what you're saying, Steve? Personally, you can always discreetly look for a job. Always, always, always. That doesn't require anything special. You don't have to tell your company, and many people are doing this as we speak. You might be doing it as you're listening to me, in which case I say, good for you. Always good to keep looking and considering. So remember, you do not have to tell your boss, hi, I'm thinking about leaving. At many companies, especially a bad company, they will automatically not trust you, and sometimes they will fire you. If you are not prepared to be without that money, then you want to keep it a secret that you are looking. Very often a company does not know that a worker is leaving until the worker gives notice and says, I have found another job. I will stay here. In America, it's usually 2 more weeks, and then I will be leaving. So let's use these 2 weeks to transition my work to someone else. And sometimes the company says, F you, get out, your last day is today, blah, 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 and you deal with that. Oh, 76. Kayleen says 76. I had 67 in my head. So close. So close. And Destiny says, I love service design. I took a class in college and I fell in love. I did not, and I wish I did. So Steve, does this help? Am I answering your question? Am I close? Because I would say the exit strategy is yours, and it starts with updating your resume and your portfolio, maybe getting a mentor to look at this and help you clean it up, and then starting to apply for those jobs. But especially if you kind of need that pay while you're looking at leaving, you do not have to say anything to your company. Steve says, I'd like to quit sooner, but my bonus is in March, and I'd like unemployment insurance too. Yeah, if you don't have a contract that says when you are terminated, you get these things, then you technically might not have a legal right to these things. You are getting a bonus in March because they expect you to stay through March to collect that bonus. So I would say, unless this workplace is extremely abusive, if you're going to get a bonus in the next 4 to 6 weeks, then I would stick around for 4 to 6 weeks. You can still start applying to a job. It can take months to find a new job, so start applying now. And if a company is very interested in you and says, hey, when can you be free to start? You can say, well, I'm looking to start early April, or I'm looking to start late March. I have some loose ends to tie up at my job. Don't say you're waiting for the bonus, then they just think you're a money guy. I have some loose ends to tie up at my other job. I don't want to leave the project where it is now, but I would be happy to start once that's wound down in late March. So you can use that again. But again, it can take months to get a job, and by then you might have quit the other one and walked away with your bonus. So I would say start interviewing, knowing that you may or may not get a job in the next few minutes. I hope that helps. Let me know. Okay, Emmy says, interesting Twitch observations just now. Okay, this sounds fun. Let's put it up on the screen. Number 1, I opened Twitch on my phone to watch while making lunch, and there was a longer delay than what was showing on my laptop. Okay, we did something similar here. We had Twitch on my computer and Twitch on our smart TV, and the smart TV was definitely delayed by a few seconds. Emmy says, number 2, if you hit pause and then play again, it doesn't jump forward to the actual live, but picks up where you paused. So I think viewers can inadvertently add a delay. That might be. I don't actually know. I know on YouTube, if you press the word live, it'll jump ahead. So I wonder if there's something on Twitch that you can do that. Or sometimes what I've done is I've left and I've come back and then I'm at the live point of the stream. But you're right, that's not totally clear. So that's interesting. We've got Sarah. Let's answer Sarah's question over in YouTube. And Steve says, thanks, Debbie. Appreciate your advice. Good. Glad it helps. And Solomon, I see your question. You will be after Sarah. And oops, let's put that in my notes too. So Sarah says, let's find it, put it up on the screen. Hi, Debbie. Is it all right to put volunteer work as experience in your resume? Volunteering is the most direct UX experience I have, so I'd like to highlight it on my resume. Yeah, absolutely. Any work that is real should go on your resume. If it's something you did for Uncle So-and-so, or it's a passion project or a made-up fake project that you did as a sample for you to learn or improve, that can be in your portfolio as a sample project, but you wouldn't put it on your resume as real work. So I would say anything that was real work, whether it's paid or unpaid, can certainly go on your resume. And if it's all you've got, then you're going to highlight it and hopefully give some good bullet points that are impressive about what you did. And hopefully the work was real UX work and not something that isn't real UX work. Remember, everybody, you can also ask questions anonymously at deltacx.link/ask. I'm using a new system where you can even ask with a video or an audio sound, which would then be broadcast on the show, which hasn't happened yet, which is so funny because everyone's like, Clubhouse, I want to talk. And then I'm like, go ahead, talk on my show. And everyone's like, I'll just type my question. So I'm like, all right, still not on Clubhouse. I don't think I believe in it. Okay, so let's go to Solomon, who I can't put on the screen because I can't put LinkedIn questions on my screen. But always happy to see Solomon and his smiley face here. What made you focus on interviews more than any other research method? Did you have difficulty convincing organizations you worked with to support this method, providing access to their customers, users, and following your recommendations? Hey, lovely question. I actually prefer to focus on observational research as my number one. Interviews are my number two, or sometimes I'm doing them with observational. I think I'm a super people watcher. So I'm also a good people listener, but I do love to do the observational research because I just feel like I'm better than the average bear at noticing some things that people do that other people don't pick up on. So my number one favorite is observational, but I've mostly been doing interviews. I started doing a lot of interview research, I would say, in 2013. I focused on that because I thought that it would get me the best information in a reasonable amount of time. So, for example, I recognize that surveys are often flawed and you just get numbers. 57% said this, 78% said this. But what do I really know at the end of the day? What can I really tell my client? And of course, the client could have run a survey. Why do they need me? So I feel like a lot of the qualitative research can also help highlight the special talents and skills that I can bring to a project or a company. Emmy says, I just tested side by side. It looks like the laptop jumps to live when you unpause, but iOS picks up where you unpaused. Weird. I agree. Did I have difficulty convincing organizations? Not so much, because in general, organizations were often coming to me because I could do good interview research and because I had some good examples and case studies from it. So I was able to build up a little bit of a reputation in San Francisco when I was living there, that this was something that I could do at a company and within X number of weeks have something really helpful to them that they didn't have before. Again, that being said, most of the full-time regular jobs that I've had, I've often been more in a box where I've been more of the information architect and interaction designer, and I haven't been allowed to do the research because that was someone else's job. There was a separate research team, and I'm there to be more of the architect. They do the research. So at my corporate jobs, I wasn't usually allowed to do the research, which upset me greatly. I figured I can do this. They're all behind. They're understaffed. Why can't I do this? Not my job. Can't do it. But when I work or freelance for agencies and consultancies, usually they are more appreciative of some of the magic that I can create, and I haven't had to convince anybody too much. There's a project I'm on now that was really focused on diary studies, and I really wanted to see more interviews added to it and more stuff, so I pushed for that a little bit. But again, that's freelancing and agency stuff. So when it comes to corporate world and research, I would have to admit that I don't have enough history with that to say, oh yeah, here's how I pushed that through, because I really wasn't able to. I was told, you're the UX architect, you don't do research. We've got those guys doing it. Okay, yeah, but those guys need 3 weeks to even talk to me about what I need. So this isn't working. So I don't have a lot of great ideas on how to solve that. But if I thought I would have to sell research into an organization, I would probably focus on the quality of information, the type of information, the task analysis, and stuff that we'll be able to do and know that we're not going to get any other way. You're not going to get it from a survey or an NPS. You're not going to get it from app reviews. You're not going to get it from customer support. This only comes from this research being done well. Okay, we've got some questions from Sarah again. Oh, hold on. Looks like I have half of Solomon's question pasted. Let's fix that. Sorry, y'all can't see that I've got a copy-paste universe going on for later. Okay, so 2 questions from Sarah. Let's start with the first one, scrolling up. Do you think UX research jobs are only at bigger companies, or have you seen them at smaller companies as well? I see more UX design jobs than research. I would agree. There are more UX design jobs than research, but I think many of those companies are making a mistake. Very often, not always, very often I see companies assume that we can just show up, and based on what a stakeholder or product manager or somebody says, we can just design something amazing just because someone else has an idea, and we'll release it to the customer and find out if it's good or not. They don't usually understand that full arc of user-centered design and why it's important to do research, learn from our research, do information architecture, learn from that, etc. So while there are more design jobs, I think that shows low UX maturity, low CX maturity, and that companies think that we can just show up, sketch some screens, pass it to engineering, and we're done. And so I think that you tend to see, or at least you hope you're seeing higher maturity companies when they have research, but I get plenty of stories from plenty of you that you are at a company doing UX research and nobody cares, nobody wants to wait for it, nobody wants to hear about it, the engineers started without you. So it's not a given that a company that has UX researchers is utilizing them correctly or is mature. Darren says, correct. Research engagement is based more on maturity level than size. Yes, because hypothetically, a startup would absolutely benefit from research. In fact, it would hopefully keep them from going out of business because their product doesn't fit the market. But they don't always invest in it because they've read some books about cool startups, just guessing at products, putting it out there and seeing what people think. So, to me, that's not the way to go. Sarah had a second question. Here we go. I think this is it. Second question. How do you recommend getting into freelance UX? I saw on Upwork it can be a specialty. Yeah, I've got a lot to say about freelance UX. First of all, in my opinion, freelance UX is for someone with at least a few years of experience. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, Deb. I thought freelance UX was going to give me experience. I'm new. And I say, well, remember, we typically think of a freelancer as someone who is experienced, maybe even a bit of an expert. People don't usually think of the freelancer as someone who is still starting out, still learning, and possibly guessing. So freelance is not always the best way to try to gain experience. If you are going to go that route, I recommend very strongly that you get a mentor or coach who will review your work nearly constantly, because you are probably guessing if you're new to UX. If you have some years of experience, hopefully you're not guessing. Hopefully you're now more proficient. But be careful about just announcing, I'm a freelance UX person, because very often you end up with freelance jobs that, number one, don't understand UX and just want you to become an order taker web designer. Number two, if they actually do know what UX is and they ask you to do observational research with contextual inquiry and then a task analysis, can you do it? Are you faking it? Are you guessing? Are you in over your head? So be careful. Darren says, +111 freelance. Lots of folks posting freelancer on LinkedIn profiles are fudging it. Yeah, went through that recently with someone who was like, help me find my first job. And I said, LinkedIn says you've been freelancing for a year. You're fine, right? You got a job. And they said, I haven't gotten any work. And I said, LinkedIn says you've been freelancing for a year. That's going to look weird when someone goes to interview you. So that's a whole other question. So I would say be careful when you put yourself out there as a UX freelancer. Who remembers what episode number 8? That's how far back this was. Episode 8 of the podcast, I think, was my advice on having a good freelance contract and taking payments and standing up for yourself. But ultimately, be careful of the idea of, I'm going to freelance to get experience. I think of the freelancer as the hired gun that I bring in to save the day. I get brought in that way. I know boot camps are telling you go out and freelance to get experience, but in general, from what I'm hearing when a lot of you write to me, it's ugly. Because you're in over your head, or you're given work that wasn't really UX, and now you have nothing to put in your portfolio. So womp womp, or womp womp, as I believe it is. Cassie has a question. Let's put that up. And let's see. Sarah says, thanks about the advice for freelancing. Good insight. Sure. Leandro, I see your question. You will be after Cassie's question, and then Cassie, broader question of your original question. We'll put all these up. Okay, hold on. We might have to run a little bit late today. When is my next call? Please hold. Oh, 8:30. Okay, we're good. We can run a little bit late if that would help all of you. So let's get both of Cassie's questions and then Leandro's question. And Vivian says, bang on Debbie about freelancing ugliness. Thank you. All right, so questions from Cassie. Let's put them up on the screen. Cassie. Here we go. Question 1. Going through my first project, working on sitemap, user flow sketches, I wonder about signs that more research is needed. Are there specific red flags you look out for? For sure. So generally, when you're newer to UX, sometimes you run some research, or you haven't run research yet, and you're trying to jump into other stuff, and then you go, do I need more research? So very often, if you didn't do your research, so I guess a question would be, hey, Cassie, did you do research, or are you trying to do information architecture without having done research? So let me know that. But typically, you will realize you need to do more or different research when you realize you have a question you can't answer. When you realize that you are not sure what to design or what to do with some of the information architecture because you don't have the data from the interviews or the observations that would tell you, how can you make this better? It's also why I recommend the task analysis artifact, which you can see in the micro lessons playlist. Cassie says, I did do research, qualitative and user interviews. Okay, so so sometimes even if you've planned your research and so on, you find later on, Oh man, there's a missing piece here. And normally that's what will be your red flag. You will realize there's something you are trying to solve for, or there's something you're trying to improve and you just don't know enough about it. If you're doing a user flow, then you might be trying to optimize someone's steps or task or experience, and you realize, I'm not totally sure what people are doing at this step. I'm not totally sure if they're using workarounds. I'm not totally sure what they know versus what they need to know, the knowledge gap, as you'll hear Larry Marine talk about. And that is usually a sign that more research would be great. Because when people don't do that research, they end up guessing. They fill in the blanks with, well, maybe people are doing this, I'll design for that. Now we're guessing, and y'all know how I feel about guessing. There's really no place in CX and UX for it. Nielsen-Norman Group says don't do it. Lean UX says only do it. So this is why we say this to Lean UX, and we say do not guess. So Cassie, if you have the time and possibility, it is great to cycle back to research when you realize there's something I don't know here. There's something I missed about what people are doing here, or I'm not totally sure what would improve their task right here. I better go back and maybe watch them do this task, or ask them some other things about this task that I didn't ask them before. So Cassie, I hope that helps. And then Cassie had a kind of follow-up question, and then we'll get to Leandro. Are there specific industries or spaces where you see exciting UX opportunities developing in the next decade? Everywhere, because everything sucks. Gestures broadly at everything. Thanks to all of these shitty shortcuts that everybody has been doing, there is room for improvement and opportunity everywhere. Everything needs to be fixed. Everything needs to be improved. And Darren and I will be talking tomorrow. Won't you join us live, please, especially on Twitch? We're going to be talking about what if companies held UX accountable? How would that change companies, UX, products, customer experiences? So I think that there's exciting UX opportunities everywhere because everything sucks. And I believe that sooner rather than later, we're going to get rid of some of these shortcuts that have not been serving companies well, that are expensive and produce very little good stuff. And I think companies are going to regret that they fired their research and development teams to hold cool design sprints. And we're going to cycle back towards quality. At least I'm pushing for that. I'm pushing for it, and I believe it's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. Let's take a look at Leandro's question. Thank you for waiting. Sorry, we have so many questions today. Leandro says, hi, Mary Poppins of UX. Hi, I'm Debbie. I did research and my team had difficulties understanding the importance of the observer. In your opinion, how are the major functions of the observer and how should that person proceed? Okay, so obviously the main thing to know about the observer is that person is not doing any of the interviewing. That person should not be speaking. And in many cases, that person should not even be seen. In a really dream scenario, that person is so behind the scenes and just watching that the participant doesn't know they're there. In some companies, we build listening labs where there's what we call a one-way mirror between two rooms, and people are watching in one room and the research is happening in the other room. And, it's like a police interrogation. They don't see the person there. It might be somebody who is joining in on a Zoom kind of call and you don't unmute them and you don't show their video and they are just kind of lurking. So number one, make sure your observers are observers. Otherwise, it's too many cooks in the kitchen, and especially because many of these stakeholders ask bad questions, flawed questions, they can really mess up your research. So make sure they are muted and out of the way. If people are having difficulties understanding the importance of why should they observe, start showing them some video clips from interviews that they missed. Say, check it out. We asked this person about this and we got this really surprising answer, or this really deep answer, or this important answer that told us we might be going in the wrong direction. And hey, here's a couple of other clips that that showed us we might be going in the wrong direction. So find some clips that will show people the power of paying attention to the research. But ultimately, whether they observe it live or they watch video clips later, or they watch entire videos later, I don't get too wrapped up in that. I just want people to eventually consume some of that research in some sort of media way. I don't want them to just read quotes or just see my PowerPoint, because it's sometimes not as powerful. I think they have to see the person struggling with the interface. They have to hear the person saying, oh, I can't figure this out. What's wrong with me? Or what's wrong with this? Well, the worst thing is when people go, what's wrong with me? Or I'm an idiot, or I must be having a bad day. They want to tell you you're an idiot and they don't want to say it. So I hope that helps, Leandro. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. Let's catch up to some questions. We'll run a little bit late for today. And another question from Destiny. And then I also see a question from Kayleen and a question from Vivian. So I promise we will get to all of these. And then we will probably have to wrap up for today. Let's paste these. Hold on, I'm pasting these for later. So Vivian's will be last. Kayleen will be before. And an LOL from Destiny. Okay, Destiny says, follow-up question to earlier. Good. How do you communicate your UX strengths and weaknesses in interview and portfolio without losing the job? Well, generally only depends what it is. Normally, I will be very upfront about not being an artist and not doing visual design, only because there are so many combination UX jobs. So normally, I will jump on that right away so that nobody tries to interview me for a hybrid job that I know I'm not going to either be able to do or want to do. So in that case, I'm kind of leading with a weakness. But I'm doing it to weed myself out. I don't want the job if it's going to be visual design or heavy visual design. So in general, don't feel like you have to show up and go, by the way, I suck at this. Like I don't do that. Well, I do it as a joke on this channel, but I don't really do it in an interview. I say, I'm not an artist. All of my artistic talent is in music. I'm more of a CX and UX purist, coming from more of the psychology side of things, and I'm a change agent. Hopefully you'd like that. You don't have to show your strengths and weaknesses in a portfolio. You don't have to show them in an interview. A really great interviewer will see them. You don't have to announce them. You don't have to wave the flag and go, by the way, I'm bad at this. We're probably going to know. Some interviewers think it's fun to ask you, what's your weakness? I would come up with an answer that I'm comfortable with, that is honest and isn't too terrible. Don't say like, oh, I like to set fire to buildings. Yeah, that's definitely a weakness. Come up with something, I don't know what that is for you, so I can't even guess. It sounds like you learn really fast and pick up things fast, and you're not afraid to hold up a torch and lead. So I don't know what your weakness is, but come up with something that sounds good and honest without making it sound like they shouldn't hire you. So I don't even know what that is. I would have to coach you a little bit and get to know you better and say, here's a good answer for that. I don't know. But there you go. And then strengths. What are your strengths? I don't know. From the 3 things you posted in Slack the other day, I would say your strengths are learning quickly, picking up the torch and running with something, and finding problems and solving problems, and utilizing the best methodologies you know how for the problem at hand. But I'm just getting to know you, so what do I know? Let's see. Kayleen has a double question, and it looks like this. Where do I go to recruit observational research participants for my sample project? If I use my own network, won't that invite bias? Social media? Is there a website for recruiting? I thought the researcher might talk at the beginning and the end. If the participant has to think aloud, wouldn't they feel a bit awkward talking to themselves? Okay, so double question there, and then we're going to end with Vivian's question. So number 1, Where do I go to recruit observational research participants for this sample project? There's lots of places that you can go. You are right in that social media might bring your friends and people you know, and that can be biased, or it might be their friends and people they know. This is where you can try to post to Reddit. If you find a Reddit that is relevant to something you're looking to research, ask the administrator first. Make sure they're okay with you posting that you're doing a study, especially if it's a paid study. They'll want you to be upfront about that, so check that. Discussion forums, sometimes you can post to a discussion forum, but again, check with the administrator to make sure it's okay to say, I'm looking for people for the study. And again, always have a URL to your screener survey. Don't say, contact me for more information. Say, fill out my survey to see if you qualify, and have a great screener survey ready to go. And we can work on that if you need help. Social media, website for recruiting. There are some websites that have panels from which you can recruit, but they are usually paid services. So for example, userinterviews.com will run your screener survey in front of a zillion people, but you do pay them for that. And very often the people taking part in the study will expect to be paid. So I would say make sure you've got some budget put aside for paying these people who are going to be part of your, I know it's a sample project, but still, even if you have $20 for them to talk to you for a half hour, offer them something, Amazon gift card, whatever, because that can go a long way, both in appreciation and in getting better people involved. So there are many websites where you can put up your screener survey, but typically I would say start with these cheapy ones. Project I'm working on now, we posted to Craigslist. Make sure it's appropriate and honest. Try some of these things. Sorry, I'm going to have some more coffee. Excuse me. Decaf with coconut milk. How do you guys like your coffee? Okay, other half of Kayleen's question, and then Vivian. Did I miss one in the email? No, but Ikening is posting about me on LinkedIn. Well, I'll look at that later. Ikening, you're everywhere. Kayleen says, oh, hi, Wilson. Is that just you joining just now? Wilson's plus red, right? I can't remember everybody's Twitch name just yet. I thought the researcher might want to talk at the beginning and the end if the participant has to think aloud. Wouldn't that be awkward talking to themselves? Right. So when you're doing an observational study, typically I'll say, okay, now show me how you do this task, go through all of the steps. And then just shut up. You'll be surprised. People are happy to talk about stuff and talk and talk and talk. And I try not to interrupt. I try not to interrupt them, but I'll make notes if there's a question that I have or something I'm not sure about. But usually I'll try to let them get through their description. And then I might say, let me bring you back for a moment to that step. Can I ask you, do you have any notes that you keep? Do you have anything that you do that helps you with that step? Oh yeah, actually I do this, this, and this. Okay, now we've got additional information. So yes, when people are thinking aloud or going through a task, I try to say nothing. I try to just shut up and listen to them. And if something seems weird or I'm not totally sure, I don't interrupt them. I take a note, and then once they've made it through their task or workflow, then I can say, hey, let me bring you back to that earlier step. Let me ask you about that. I don't think they think awkward talking to themselves. I will say normal conversational things like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'll say very, very short things that don't interrupt their train of thought or what they're doing, but I'll make sounds so they know I'm still alive. I often turn off my camera so that my face isn't distracting to them, but I will still make I'll say, by the way, I'm going to turn off my camera now because you're the star of the show. And they usually laugh. And then as they're doing stuff, I'll say, or okay. And they'll say, oh, do you see how I'm doing this? Yes, I see it. So they're not just talking to themselves. It'll work out, I promise. And Vivian, so patient. Thank you so much for waiting. Vivian on LinkedIn has a question, and then we'll have to go. We've run over time. Vivian says, please do add some light on how massive scale research can be done in shorter time. Okay, so There's a couple of ways to try to have massive research happen in a shorter time. Now, you might say, oh my God, my company's not going to let me do any of these. But remember, I'm just trying to answer your question. I can't necessarily fix a broken company or a broken process, but these are some of the things that I have found that can help a project go over time. Yeah, thanks to everybody for staying a little bit later. And of course, don't forget to follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, and join tomorrow where Darren and I will be live talking about holding UX accountable. I think it will change everything. And I mean everything. So one way that massive research can be done in a shorter time is to, of course, add qualified researchers. Please do not make the mistake of taking on anybody at your company and pretending they're a researcher. Do not pick up the engineer, the product manager, the project manager. Then you've just taught them anybody can do research without knowing shit about it. So please don't do that. But try to pick up more qualified researchers for the project. If you don't have them, see if they will bring in freelancers or even an agency. You want to make sure that you're bringing in qualified people. Don't start teaching your company that anybody can be a researcher. You're going to be sad with what they learn from that. So number one, add people to the task. Number two, get research assistants on there. These might be research interns, research apprentices. Again, not the engineer, not DevOps, not marketing, not product management, not project management, not the stakeholder, not your cousin. Get assistants, apprentices. This is a great time for apprentices, by the way. Apprentices, people who've gone through boot camps and are looking for their first chance. These people can take notes, get sticky notes on walls, start to organize them. Maybe they're not totally ready to do the interviews or the observations, but there's so much other stuff that they can do that's going to help take that time off of your plate and help this all balance out. So apprentices, boot campers as note takers, as starting to help with some of the affinity mapping and things like that. Apprentices. And you can pay them relatively little, but please don't pay them nothing. Massive scale research done in shorter time. Be prepared for recruiting. Plan the recruiting much better. If the recruiting has to come from your internal existing customer database, be working with whoever owns that database much faster than you usually do. Plan ahead for that if you can. You are going to need to pull a certain number of people out of that database. Ask them for at least twice the number of people you think you need. So for example, if you want to do research with 30 people, don't have them pull 40 people. Ask them to pull 100 people. Ask them to pull 150 people. You are going to have people who don't respond. You're going to have no-shows. So you only want to ask them once for that pull. So make sure that you're working with data scientists or whoever owns that database. Ask for 4 times what you need so that you're sure that by the time you're done, you've met your quota for the people you want to meet. You don't want to find out later you didn't invite enough people to the research. Obviously, work out how you're going to do the incentives and have that ready for action. If my research SaaS were ready, I would say use my research SaaS, but we're still building it, so catch me in 6 months. What else? Anybody else here have an idea of how you can make a massive research project done in a shorter time? I also find sometimes that doing the affinity mapping and mural boarding, not sponsored, as you go, like, okay, today I did 3 interviews. Now I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to go through my notes and go through stuff and put up my notes. That way, as you go and these things are still fresh, you're getting it up on the board. And it's not like, okay, we met 30 people. Now let's get stuff on the board. Who did I meet? Oh my God, that was so long ago. Do it more as you go. And I think that will feel better and probably get some better stuff out of you because it will still be fresh. Darren says, establish a research participant repository and have it ready for all of your projects. Yeah. So if you don't need some data scientists to do a data pull, start recruiting and managing your own database that you'll be able to use for future projects. You might be able to put an intercept on your website or app or something and say, from time to time, we run research studies. Would you like to be a part of our crew, we're going to send you a hat, or we're going to give you an Amazon gift card, or, see if you have something small you can give them for even joining the community. And then you've got to manage that community and then let them know when there are studies. So that's a very good way to go, managing your own community and growing that for what you might need in the future, especially if it's with current users and customers. There's some things that just cannot take shorter, I've noticed. But again, if you put multiple people on things, sometimes you can help divide and conquer the work. Vivian, if you're still here, do you have a follow-up question? Is that helping? I may have lost you because we ran late. Massive research done in shorter time. I don't like to do less research. So let me clearly say, if someone is trying to cut down your time, don't cut down the research. Don't be like, well, we really wanted to talk to 30 people, but we'll talk to 8. No, again, be careful of what that is accidentally or on purpose teaching your coworkers. You're teaching them you just need to talk to 8 people. So every time you ask for 30, you look like an idiot. So I would say stick to your guns with your research plan and your reasoning for why you need to meet 8 to 12 people of these 3 groups or types or personas or buckets or whatever, segments. Okay, we're super out of time. I should really go. So quick show notes so everybody knows what's coming up for those of you still joining, and thanks again. Let's take a quick look. Okay. Tomorrow, of course, is Darren. Hello, Darren. Darren will be here talking about holding UX accountable, which again, I believe is going to change everything if it ever happens. Monday, we're super excited to say, is episode 100. We ordered our cake. I hope you too will order a cake, and we will be enjoying that cake with Dimitris Niavis from Greece, who will be talking about data-driven versus data-informed. Tuesday the 23rd, super special office hours Ask Us Anything with Darren Hood and Dr. Nick Fine. Wednesday the 24th, comedy podcast with some of the slides from the training I'm writing for HR and recruiters, and I will be showing you the worst UX job descriptions I found. It's comedy and tragedy. Let's see. After that, we're sliding into March. March 1st, I'm very excited to tell you that we will have Abby Covert here, who wrote the very famous information architecture book, How to Make Sense of Any Mess. I think that's what it was called. She will be talking about information architecture. She is the genius. Oh my God, I can't believe Kayleen is asking me if I have a Carvel cake. Can you believe this? Kayleen thinks we ordered a Carvel cake. Like we're getting Cookie Puss. Yeah, we're getting Fudgy the Whale. No, Kayleen, we're having the village baker in the small village I live in rural Italy bake us a very special cake on their day off. So we're really honored. I will make sure to show you the cake on Monday. Tuesday, March 2nd, of course, Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday, March 3rd, Dr. Seth Finkel will be back talking about people-pleasing versus self-advocacy. So another self-help moment here on the show. Monday, March 8th, we will have Julia DeBarry here. Oh my gosh, Julia DeBarry, so excited. She has taught at like 7 boot camps, and we're going to talk about how the sausage is made. March 9th is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday, March 10th will be another Slack networking adventure. We had 11 or 12 people last time, so join the Slack network. It is free, and you can come do our live video networking so we can all get to know each other. That is March 10. I absolutely must mention March 16, which is going to be Office Hours Ask Me and Russell Anything. My friend Russell is a comedian and a broadcaster in Canada. Anybody here in Canada? He is a CBC broadcaster in Canada and a comedian, and he will be giving short comedy answers to your questions before I give you serious answers. Let's see. And then, of course, we have to mention, even though it's so far out, March 23rd will be Office Hours Ask Us Anything with Steve Portugal. Yes, Steve Portugal. He will be answering your questions here on the show. So mark calendars forever and ever to hang out here. I still can't believe Kayleen thinks we bought a Carvel cake. I don't even think that exists here. It barely exists in America. I think they went bankrupt and they got bought by, I don't remember who. But I grew up with Carvel in New York, and we thought it was good until we learned more. So I'm going to go, but thanks again to everybody. Remember, if you're on Twitch, follow me there, please. Press ! giveaway if you'd like to be entered in the contest for, no purchase necessary, for a signed hardcover color book from me. If you already have one, I'll sign it to somebody else you like, and you can give it to them as a very cheap gift because it will have cost you nothing. So that is it for now. I hope to see everybody next week. Remember, deltacx.link/ask works all week long, and I will answer your questions next week. And you can always find this archived on the YouTube channel in the Office Hours playlist. With that, I think I will play us out of here and get ready for the 2 interviews that I have coming up with that project I'm on. So good luck. I hope these people actually show up. Thanks, everybody. Be well and safe, and see you tomorrow. Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation